Welcome to Fired Up. I am your host, Tammy Schaefer-Scheich. Thank you for tuning in today. We hope that the topics we discuss can make you fired up. Welcome to Fired Up. Today we will be speaking with Dr. Jan Eglin. Jan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, hi, Tam. I'm in Carmel, Indiana, and as I say, on the banks the banks of the beautiful Lake Jan, or Pond Jan is probably more accurate. Golly, I'm a graduate of Indiana State 4 times, bachelor's, 2 masters, and a doctorate. For the last 50 years, I've been practicing as a psychologist, a lot of years in Terre Haute, and now I'm in Carmel, and I'm doing a lot of telehealth. And I just recently received my national license, so I can do telehealth in 41 states.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah. Mostly what I'm trying to do is to regain my balance. What I mean is, my wife passed away in January the 24th. We'd been married 58 years. And so it was new for me to be alone. And so today I'm going to talk about what I've done in the last 5 months.
Okay.
And maybe it will help other people. I don't know.
Okay. So my first question is, talk about life today versus the 58 years together. Does it feel like you're kind of missing a limb?
It does. More than that, I don't have anyone to help me make decisions. And
Okay.
so I like to discuss things before I attempt to do them or start something new. And Joe was always very a steadying influence. If my idea was too wild, well, she would settle me down. So it's taken a bit of adjustment. I've transferred to my son and my daughter, and my son's an attorney, and my daughter is an MBA from Indiana State. And so just this weekend, I had to make a decision on a unsolicited job offer, and I thought it would be good, and they both advised me, just turn it down. We're not going to do that, Dad. So I did, turned it down. So they're my counsel, I guess I would say. Now, I have 3 brothers. They are really intelligent. My kids are too. Jeremy's a JD and Jocelyn's an MBA. My brothers, one's a medical doctor that's retired. One's a former drug pharmaceutical salesperson. He was in the Army during the Vietnam War. He's an Indiana State guy. And then my youngest brother, Jeff, is a first responder for Homeland Security.
Wow.
And he does interesting things. They send him in to organize the rescue people, and he's kind of an executive. So recently, let's see, he did Katrina, the hurricane.
Oh, gosh.
He did Florida, and helped the people do a couple of things. They had an earthquake and a hurricane, I believe. No, they had a hurricane, and so it flooded a lot of houses. and then there was wind damage. And so he helped the people navigate that because the insurance company said that most of that was an act of God and not covered
Oh,
by insurance. So,
sure. Well, let's
yeah.
go back. Let's go back to talking about how life has changed. And so you talked about the decision-making process. So you have renegotiated that into your desire to talk things through. Now you're using your son and your daughter for that. So you talked about the experience this weekend. So tell me how that felt, because that's a different process for you.
It's starting to feel more natural.
Okay.
Um, I also am doing my best to keep myself busy.
Okay. What
Uh,
does that look like?
what does that look like? It looks like that I have to make a schedule for myself each day. Now, Tam, my whole life, at the beginning of every year, I would make me a card and it would say medical, finances, things like that. I think there were 9 of them on my list. And on that card, I would write my goals for that year. So I have been a guy that makes goals for himself for a long time, and it kind of seems natural. And I got out of the habit when I started taking care of Joe. Uh, she had Alzheimer's disease for about 7 years, and then the last year was really bad when she had a stroke also. So I didn't have the time to make my cards,
Sure.
but I'm back doing it again now, and it's like a lot of other things. It comes back to you quickly.
Absolutely. All right. So let's talk about some of those goals. Could you share some goals with me that you have written for this year with this life looking so much different for you?
Yeah. Um, as often as I can, I want to go to Texas and visit my sister-in-law. She's Joe's sister, who's just a lovely woman, and uh, I really enjoy that. And I'm making that part of my goal-oriented schedule.
I love that. So has travel always been something that you've enjoyed? Did you and Joe do a lot of that?
Yes, we did. And the reason is that I knew what she had as a psychologist or neuropsychologist, and I knew the course of the illness.
Sure.
And so I wanted us to do fun things. So, real quickly, we did an ocean cruise with my brother Doug and his wife Lynette, both of whom are medical doctors. And we spent 15 days touring around uh, England and Ireland. So we went to a lot of cities, and we would uh, travel by night, and during the day we could go visit Dublin or Belfast or wherever it is that we wanted to go. Joe and I went with her cousin who was born in Italy, and we went to their native home, and we spent 14 days in traveling around Italy, and that was a lot of fun.
Tell me this. So tell me what so you said going and going back to Texas to visit your sister-in-law. So let's talk about how travel is different now than it was when it was you and Joe traveling.
Well, I haven't mentioned yet, but I've got knees that aren't really very good. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to have a what they call a transplantation. Excuse me for the noise, of my right knee a week from Wednesday. And when that one heals up, then I will have my left knee done. And I should be walking normally at that time. And so that's going to open up some more world.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I'm
so
going back to California where I used to live and see some of my good friends there.
oh, I love that. So here I have a question. So if you could travel anywhere in addition to California and Texas, where would you go and why?
Really good question.
Thanks. I tried to get a few.
Oh my, let's see. Okay. And I'll be real honest.
Well,
One of the things that's different for me, and I'm just going to flat out mention it, is that Joe, right before she died, she said to me, if you find somebody, um, go for it, knock yourself out. Because she said, I would if you died, and you would never know about it, and I will never know about it. And that's really an important thing for your mate to say to you. Uh, and so I was grateful that she did. And so I'm going to probably uh, find me some gal, and I've got two or three that were actually really good friends of my wife that have been in contact with me and I think would go on a trip with me.
okay.
Uh, and I think it's important as a psychologist to get somebody that knows your history and you know theirs.
Absolutely. For comfort and for trust. Okay, so let's talk about, so in addition to travel and setting different goals for yourself, so let's talk about because I think, as you said, I think this is something that will really resonate with so many. When you spend so much time and so much of your life with someone, there's almost a shorthand there. I will bet, I don't have to bet, I know that you two had kind of unspoken communication in many different ways, correct?
Correct.
And so when you have that shorthand, and even if you are speaking with someone that you have some knowledge of, that shorthand is no longer there. So let's talk about kind of what this life looks like on a daily basis that's different now than it was with that partner that kind of knew what you needed before you even told her you needed it.
Yeah. But I'll tell you that anybody I have a relationship, uh, I start out right at the beginning and we develop a journal of code words.
Oh, that's
That's
interesting.
that's part of the relationship with Jan.
Okay.
And so that we can send two or three words to each other and know what we're talking about.
Okay. Can you give me an example?
That we could use here.
Yeah, yes, that we can use
Yeah,
here. Yes.
okay.
That we can use for family, friends, children, everybody. Yes, one
I
of
hear you.
those.
I hear you. In all transparency, folks, I've known this woman right here I'm talking to for many years. We'll just leave it like that. And uh, I love her and adore her, but she's married. So we'll leave it at that. She's not eligible for my list. I'll put it that way. Um, golly.
So your point is you develop kind of a shorthand with somebody so that they get to know you a little bit better and you have your own kind of little private language. But what I'm asking is, you talked about staying very busy and making a schedule for yourself to make sure that time every day is taken up in that way. But talk about in those moments that today's life is different than the life a year ago, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, 10 years ago. Talk about like kind of getting through those days and what what that looks like and how you're going to negotiate going forward in a different direction.
It's difficult. I'll tell you it is.
I believe that.
As a former husband and right there, I said something as a former husband. And what I mean by that is everything's now in my name. And when I tell people about where I live, I will say, and here's our bedroom and
Sure.
there's our bathroom.
Sure.
It's not an hour anymore. It's mine.
That's right. And that's
And
hard.
it's very hard. You feel guilty saying it. So if anybody's watching this, I would say two things. You have to get over the guilt. You didn't put yourself in this situation. And the second thing that I would say is you have to give yourself some liberty. And that'll be a hard thing.
Sure.
And
Let's talk about
okay.
the guilt. Let's go back to the guilt. So you're right. Logic tells us that you didn't have anything to do with this current situation that you're in as a single human. But what I want to do a little bit of focusing on for you is in the 7 years that she walked through this journey, you were right beside her every step of the way. So it's funny, I think, in life that we use the word guilt, but the truth is, if we look at it logically, there really isn't anything to be guilty about. I believe, my opinion, and you know me, I'm entitled to my opinion. There wasn't any stone that was left unturned with Jo. You did everything possible and 4 more things that could ever have been done. You, your family, all those that love her. So when we look at that logically, guilt really probably should not be on the table. Tammy asked with a question mark.
Yeah, it shouldn't be, but there are certain things that are, and regardless of how you want to define them, in your quiet hours, in your lonely hours,
Sure.
you're going to think, why am I living and she isn't?
Well, so I got, pick me. I've got this one. I happen to know that you are a man of faith. And so using that piece of knowledge, I'm going to say to you, as I just said to a guest recently, I would never tell you that I'm smarter than God, because I just know that I'm not. And I'm not even going to put that out there because I don't even come in a close 952nd. So I'm going to suggest that this was God's plan. And as a man of faith, I believe you know that as well.
I do. And for a long time, I was an elder in my church in Terre Haute. And I feel like I'm fairly well schooled in faith and religion. But let me say this. I think I believe everything I always believed, but at the same time, I feel like this is sort of my time. And I don't have very many summers left. I don't know how many, but I enjoy the summers. And so I'm trying to give myself a little liberty and do what Jan wants without being openly greedy or anything that would dishonor my wife. Anybody I'm with is always going to be in second place. And that's not their fault. It's just how it is. But when you've got no one to talk to in the morning or at night, and you sleep alone, that's a hard thing.
Absolutely.
So I guess I would say, with respect to religion, if I talk to you, I've always been a very uh, straightforward, but a clean talking guy. I'm finding myself now being a little bit more irreverent. Uh, doesn't mean I've given up on God or anything like that. As a matter of fact, uh, I watch 5 different broadcasts every Sunday on television. Uh, there's always a part of religion in terms of uh, theology, and uh, I'm more open to discussion. I have one patient who is brilliant in religion, and I've learned all kinds of things about uh, Baptists and Calvinists and uh, Lutherans, whatever. And it's been enlightening. Now, at the same time, because Joe was sick for so long, uh, I didn't go to church for about a year. And since she has passed away, I still haven't gone, simply because I can't walk in. I anticipate after I get my knees fixed that I will go back to church. I will say, I just told you an untruth. I've been to church twice, both with my sister-in-law in Texas. Uh, One, I went to her church, and two, I went to the Granbury Triple Cross Cowboy Church, which
Yep.
was just outstanding.
Well, we will get to that story. I want to go back to you used a word that I found interesting. So you talked about trying not to be greedy. So I find that an interesting word. I do, and you talked about making decisions on your own now, and um, describing the house in terms of yours and not ours, as you would in a relationship. So greedy is a funny word for me because it tends to have a negative connotation. However, what I'm suggesting is, and a little bit with what you started talking about, you are in a different stage of your life today than you were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, back down the line. And so at this point, um, you get to make some really interesting choices going forward without using some of the barometers that would have been used in the relationship historically. So if you decide, and I understand knees get fixed first, but you decide that you want to go to Texas, or you want to go to California, or you want to go out to eat, that is a singular decision now versus a conversation. Where would you like to go to eat? I don't care. Where would you like to go to eat? You know, some of those kind of couple kind of conversations. So as you navigate this next part of life, knowing that it's going to be at you're the head of the helm, and you're going to be making those decisions. Does that excite you, or is that a little bit off-putting in that it will just be you making the decisions?
You know, you would make a good life coach. You ought to, you ought to think about that.
I will. I'll give that some thought. We'll see if I can make a
Okay.
go of it.
Here's the deal on that. As each month passes and I realize I'm getting closer to ground zero, um, I don't think about that so much. I just think, this is what I want to do. I'm going to do it. And that's what I meant by greedy.
Okay,
That
but I would fight with you over the word greedy, because like I said, there are certain words to me that bring up a negative in my brain, and I believe greedy is one of them. But I would rephrase that for you, and I would say that you are by necessity self-focused. In other words, you need to go get a hamburger. You don't have to have a committee meeting over it. You just decide where the last big hamburger that you had that you enjoyed was. And so I'm suggesting to you that in this new phase of your life, while it will be different, different sometimes is good, different sometimes is bad, but sometimes different is different. And so I'm just suggesting that as you start navigating with exactly like you said, like with anything new, the longer you do it, the easier it becomes, right? Like if I wanted to play the guitar, which I have not done since I was, dating a boy in ninth grade that played the guitar, it would take some work to get that done. And so I'm suggesting that although there have been a lot of negatives attached, this also becomes a part in your life where you get to be Christopher Columbus and kind of discover a different world, right?
Well spoken. Yes.
And so as many things as you are interested in, it opens up the opportunity to explore some avenues that, because of, hey, life, because of the situation for the last 7 years, because of all sorts of life situations, we kind of put ourselves on a back burner, right? I mean, that'd be a fair thing to say for the last 7 years of your life, correct?
There's a couple of things I want to say here.
Okay, go right ahead.
One of them is that I'm sure that folks think, well, he's a psychologist with a doctorate, so he'll know what to do and he'll be fine. Not true. Not true.
I agree.
But I have talked to a lot of my colleagues, and it's not the psychology that's so helpful, it's the psychologist.
Absolutely.
Because they know me and they've made really good suggestions for me.
Good.
The hardest one, and this is being honest, the hardest one was to decide, Jan, it's okay if you let yourself get interested in another woman. You're not going to go to hell because you do. And I know because I had to buy them right after Joe died, that right out here at Flannery Buchanan, we have one big grave and one big tombstone for the both of us. So that's where I'm going to end up. But it's rather interesting to be able to think about another woman and getting a new relationship, because I never thought that I'd be able to have a new relationship.
Sure.
So I have to agree with you.
Well,
go ahead.
Let's go back to, so yeah, absolutely. That's one piece of this, but I'm suggesting to you in this different world that you would have never chosen, but it is the world you're in. And so my thought is that it is so much bigger than just and I'm not undermining a relationship. Relationships are wonderful, but I'm suggesting to you that this could potentially be getting away from the word greedy. And if we make the word selfish and we reframe it as a positive and not a negative, it looks to me like this could be a piece of your life where you get to be you in a different way than you've been you. And that doesn't mean a different person, but that does mean being able to do that with a different focus, because we focus early in our marriage on our relationship, and then we focus on our children, and then we are back to focusing on our relationship at a different point in our life. And so, and of course, your relationship will always be important to you. Your children will always be important to you. But I'm suggesting that maybe this new piece of life you've been thrust into can become an explorative journey for you, in that maybe there's travel, maybe there's having different conversations Maybe there's a human in a restaurant, in traveling, that you strike up a conversation with that maybe you wouldn't have struck up that same conversation when you were married. Maybe maybe that looks like there's something at the back of your head where you thought to yourself, gosh, I really think it would be fun if I learned to, or if I played or if I took up cards, or, whatever that is. Maybe there's a piece of you that it just didn't have time to be at the forefront because, I don't know, life. And maybe if you stopped for the first time in maybe a long time and thought, okay, I don't need to factor this in with a committee meeting with others' opinions. I have always thought it would be fun and then what would I do if there were no boundaries on me? What would I do if there wasn't something tethering me? And maybe this part of life becomes that.
I think it's very possible. And I think it's probably starting to happen. My first decision like that, and you'll laugh, I think, maybe not, was when I was in Texas. I told my sister-in-law, I have always wanted a Stetson hat. And I think I'm going to get one.
I love that. I think that's fantastic. I love that.
Yep. And you see it in front of you right there.
Well, I love it. I mean, I that's what I'm saying to you is life is interesting always, as I say to my favorite psychologist. Life is always interesting and throws you curves, right? There's curveballs that it throws you constantly. And so I'm just suggesting that this part of life, although it will never be the parts that you have already experienced, and it will never be the life that you and Joe shared for so many years, I'm just suggesting that as you walk through this, if you could walk through it without the thought of greedy and without the thought of any guilt, but with the thought of somebody's just opened a door for you. I'm a big fan of Wizard of Oz. And I can even remember as a child when Dorothy opened that door and there was all the pretty colors. I just thought that was so cool. And so I'm just suggesting to you, Dr. Jan, that maybe the next part of your life can be Jan opening a door, and there's going to be colors in different ways. And you're going to be able to take that with you, with your children, with all of the people that love you, and bring that into this next part of your life. What do you think?
I think that's some pretty intelligent thinking on your part.
Go me.
Yeah, go you. Because I do think that will happen. Another thing that I've done is I've contracted with 2 managed care kind of companies, and I may have told you here already that I have my SIPACT certification, which means I'm licensed in 42 states. And so just for the heck of it, I'm going to expand my practice because I like to talk to people, and I really like to talk to people in different environments and that kind of thing. Sure. So, Tammy, you're dead on. I'm the patient, you're the psychologist, and I really appreciate that.
Well, I would never step into your psychology. I don't have the intelligence or the letters after my name to do that. But what I can tell you is, as someone who adores you, I can tell you that there's a whole lot out there left for you and a lot of exploration. I always finish with homework. So I'm going to ask you for this piece of homework to be thinking about this as you go through your daily things on your list and you go through your calendar and you go through your schedule. I would ask that one thing on that every day be something out of the norm just because Jan wants to. And if you could start every day thinking about, ooh, what's it going to be today that Jan's going to do out of the norm, I think you'll find that Jan's going to have even more fun stories to tell. Does that work for a piece of homework?
That works for me, and I will do that. And probably for the first few mornings, I might email to you what I'm going to do.
I would love that. I would
Okay.
love that. I would love that. I was just going to say, if you feel like sharing, I would be privileged for you to share too.
I would share anything with you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It has been a privilege, and it's always just a joy of mine to speak with you. And I would ask that everyone that hears your voice know that you opening up to us today is a way of sharing and bringing us all a little closer together. There are so many that are in similar situations where they're thrust in a position that they didn't necessarily sign up for, and learning to navigate those waters going forward becomes a different journey. It doesn't mean it's a bad journey. It doesn't mean it's a better journey, but it means that it's something different. And with the people that care about us in our lives, we can do that, and we can all become fired up. Jan, thank you so much today.
Happy trails to you, ma'am.
Sending good thoughts always. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And we hope you leave this today fired up.